Good morning, everybody. How are we on this lovely Thursday morning? Actually, the sun was shining this morning. Car was frozen solid, but the sun was shining. So that's always got to be good. So I hope you're all okay. Let's have a quick look. I can see there were some comments coming already. So we've got morning Charlotte, morning Edward. I'm good, thank you. I hope you're well too. And Lucy's there, and Deborah, and Joe, and Debbie, and Joe, and Jitty, and Lorna, and Sue, and Carol is in another cold and windy South Devon. Now, I know you're not used to seeing me on a Thursday, but I will be doing the odd Thursday, probably a couple of Thursdays a month, as well as my regular Wednesdays. And sometimes I'll be doing projects over 2 days, which is what we're doing here. So it just works nicely. Instead of me doing part one now and part two a week later, to actually have them back to back, so to speak. So Janet is snowed in up in Scotland. So could be good, could not be good. It depends on your point of view. Paul is very excited by the snow, my partner Paul, but that's because he works from home and he doesn't have to drive anywhere in it. So there's not much of it, so it wasn't a problem. And my studio is 1.8 miles from my house, so it's not too bad. But getting out in the chilly. So we've got Sheila and Sue and Robin and Jean coming on as well. So morning, Angela. So let's crack on anyway and have a look at what we're actually going to be working with today. Hello, Chris is in a freezing but dry South Wales. And hello, Ruth, to you as well. So let's crack on with the project that we're going to do today. And I had a couple of questions yesterday after the event, which I'm just going to recap. So if I just find the questions. So these were a couple of questions from Victoria, who posted after the go live was over. So I'm just having a quick look now here. Now she asked, sorry, 3 different questions. Janet says good excuse to bead. She asked 3 different questions. First of all, she asked she asked 2 questions and made a suggestion, because I asked for suggestions yesterday about what else we can make with these wonderful kits, because there's a lot of felt in it. 3 pieces of A4 felt is quite a bit. So, and she said, what about a beading purse to take craft projects with you? So that could be a nice one that I'll have a look at. But she asked, were the templates cut from card? And no, they weren't. The paper template that I cut using my 10p piece was actually just from a piece of copier paper, just standard paper, because I just needed to be able to draw around it. If you wanted to reuse that template quite a lot and keep it, then you could cut it out of card, maybe cut it out of an old cereal box or something like that. And she also asked if you needed a stiffener or starch to actually work with this. And no, because we're using felt, and felt has its own structure. You don't actually need anything to go in it. You could, if you wanted to, slot, when we put this together, if you wanted a stiff cover, or you wanted to make this into a little notebook of some sort, you could, as we construct it, put a little bit of card in between each one. You just need it to be slightly smaller, because you're going to stitch around the edge, and obviously it's going to be very hard to stitch through card. So you could actually make it a little bit stiffer if you want to. So also Mina says, what size is the needle case? Well, it's basically driven by the size of how big you cut your pieces. So your A4, you've got an A4 piece. So what I did was I folded the A4 piece in half. So there's your A4 piece. I'll get to these kits in a bit, but that way. So I folded that in half and just made that one square, whereas the one I was working on yesterday, I made 6.5 inches. So I just cut a strip. So it's really up to you. You can make them smaller, you can make them bigger. So the bigger you make them, the less you get out of the kit. Okay, so if you want to make a variety of different projects, I think that is plenty big enough. So this actually works out at about 4.5 inches square, approximately. Okay, but again, as I said, I've just based it on the size of the the stuff that we use, so the size of the felt. So Charlotte says, morning ladies, my shopping has just arrived. I need to put it in the fridge and the freezer, put it away straight away. Bless you. And then we've got Maxine, hello Maxine, and Jean and Lorna and Anne and Amelia and Lynn from Woodford and Katrina, good morning. And my beader's so sorry, it's both my hubby and I are poorly with COVID. Oh dear. Said my daughter tested positive too, but no symptoms. We're in quarantine for longer now. Katrina, that's tough. Get well soon. That's all we can say. So thank you, as need an A5 size or smaller. Yeah, so literally if you make it from the whole piece, that is A5, your front and your back, but then you've used the whole piece. So let's go and have a look at the two projects that we've been working on. So this is the one that I did before, and this is the one that I was doing yesterday. So if you're just joining in and you don't know how I did this, watch yesterday's, go back and watch yesterday's tutorial. Now I did discover morning Pamela, I did discover something weird yesterday, because I couldn't work out when I was trying to get this to focus, it just would not focus. So I played around with my camera settings, and then I picked up this one and it's like, focus beautifully, focus. This one, no, I don't think my camera likes, no worries Victoria, I don't think my camera likes either red or purple. I haven't worked out which one yet, so I do apologize. It's actually the project, not my camera. How weird is that? Well, it is my camera, because obviously it's not focusing, but I thought it was setting. I spent about 45 minutes playing with the settings and then had to set them all back again, because every now and again, oh, it would focus. So we'll carry on anyway. So let's have a quick look at the kits that we've been using for these, because the kits that Simon has put up on the website for us and discounted will make more than this. All right, so as I said, we're going to revisit it, and we're going to have I'm going to do a couple of different projects. So I did ask yesterday, and I think Scissor Keeper was one option, and we also had some suggestions for sort of manipulating these, which I'm going to tell you about if you're just joining us. But let's go and have a look at the kit. So I've got a couple of unopened kits here. So I've got the tan and I've got the blue. I've got my opened purple, and I've got the opened turquoise as well. And actually these projects so far have used up less, especially that one because it's smaller, less than half of a kit. But if we just go and see about the contents of the bronze ones. Now, I did just see Lucy has shared a link to it, and there is a link at the top of this post. But we'll go and have a look at the Facebook page in a moment. But this is the tan set. Now, I look at these and I think this is more, in my mind, I saw this before I saw the name of it. I thought bronze. I thought these were bronze. Absolutely beautiful. Kitty says it's the burgundy colour and reds the camera doesn't like. There you go. Who knew? But it doesn't seem to be bothered about my hair. So, you know. But this is the bronze. This is the tan set. And in each set, you get a lot to play with. So we've got size 8 seed beads in there. Got a pack of those. We've got a pack of 3mm bugle beads. And we have got a pack of Toho hexagon beads, which are really cool. Lucy said, I put the purple in my basket yesterday, took it out, and then put the tan in, and now I like the blue. Picking colour is so hard. Yeah, and we give you choices. Aren't we terrible, Lucy? So, and then you also get in it 2 lots of thread. So this is if you want to do any decorative stitching, and this is what we're going to use in a little bit to sew everything together with a blanket stitch. And this you get a matching thread for your bead embroidery, and then you get a string of pearls. Katrina says, love the tan set, my colours. It is beautiful, and this is quite almost gold. I mean, it's very stylish. And then we've got some 2x3 rondelle crystals, because, you know, let's have some crystals. And then you've also got 2 needles in there as well. You've got a size 10 needle, and you've got a big eye beading needle. So I was wondering if it was the texture of the felt it was struggling to focus on, says Lorna. Victoria went with the blue set. So there you go, that's your set. And as I said, this set will make more than one needle case, and we're going to revisit this with other projects that you can make from this bundle. Now this is right up my alley. I love bead embroidery, and I love applique. So that's what we're doing here. We're doing some applique, but I also like to make beautiful things to keep my sewing supplies in. So I'm going to have a look at a scissor fob, or scissor case, sorry, and then perhaps a little pin cushion maybe, and some other bits and pieces, because I think you should always use beautiful things. But I've just got to say happy birthday to Debbie. Debbie, many happy returns of the day, darling. She's reached a milestone birthday, shall we say. She did just say how old she is. So happy 60th, my darling. So there we go. That's what you get in a bundle. So as I said, very good value. We'll have a quick look at the blue bundle. Now, bear in mind as well, cameras do... Hang on, I'm just going to put this tan back in the bag so I don't lose everything. Webcams do strange things to colours. So if you're not sure about the colours of the individual bits and pieces, please do go and have a look at the website, because they use a bright light camera, and I'm using a Common Garden webcam. So here we go. We have, again, in each of them, we have the hexes. Actually, that's not, yeah, there we go. Oh, that's not focusing. There we go, hexes. We've got the seed beads, and we've got the 3mm bugles. So I just saw a very quick question there saying, how many pages in the needle case? As many as you like. I've just done 2 pages, but you could add more in there if you want to, so that you could separate out your needles. You could also do a little tag on there with different size needles, or if you do beading and you do normal sewing, you might have 1 page for your beading needles, 1 page for your sewing needles, another page for your pins. You know, it's really up to you. I'm showing you sort of broad technique, and then I'm hoping that you will go and play with it and make it very much your own. Just a quick update. I used to make my templates, I used a 10p piece. So with all of these yesterday. Okay, just drew around them, gave the petals a point and the centerpiece. Now, it's a shame you can't see that. It doesn't want to focus on that, because I did a sterling job last night. There we go, doing those seed beads. Those are the little hexes, actually, seed stitch. But I wanted to show that off. But yeah, we used a 10p piece to make the templates, but you can do it as you like. And then yesterday, I then added last night the stalk, because this is a longer one. Put a stalk in a leaf, and I just did a sort of V stitch with the bugle beads, which means you come up one side, go down the other, and then bring the thread up at the base just to couch that down. It's exactly the same way as I showed you how to do this yesterday in the tutorial. Okay, so those are our kits. Let's just go and have a look at the website so that we can see where you'll find all of those. So this is the Totallybeads website, and always in the top right hand corner, or if you're looking at a mobile, you might see it in the middle, but you'll always see somewhere on the page the Facebook video tutorials link. So if we click on that, this is where you find your tutorials, and that's yesterday's and that's today. This will take you through the Facebook page, but here you will find the patterns, sorry, the kits. Obviously we're going to do, there are no patterns here. You watch the tutorial and then you do your own interpretation. But you will find, we're going to do a few bits and pieces with this bundle over the next couple of months. So we've got the tan option, we've got the blue option, we've got the purple, and we've got the aqua. So if we just go and have a look at the aqua, this is obviously the one that I made before. It's got the same contents in it. You'll see your 3 different felt colors and your extra bits and pieces in there, and that's a list of what you're going to get. You also get along with it your threads as well. So as I said, we're going to have a lot of fun with this one, because we're going to do lots of different things with it. We're going to make all sorts of bits and pieces, just so that you can see basically how far a couple of pieces of felt and some beads can go. So my next project I will be making probably with the turquoise, because, you know, or I might do the tan, but cut the bits out for the first project so you can see how much is left, because I want to inspire you to have a play. So let me just put these out of the way, and we're going to grab in our purple stuff, because even though my camera doesn't like it, doesn't like the wine, let's have a look. What colour did I cut for my page? My inside, right. Now let's go back to the good old hands. Right, so I've got all my beads in here and I've got my project. The next thing I want to do is look at construction. Victoria says, my mistake, it wasn't blue, it was aqua. Yes, so I chose the aqua turquoise kind of thing because I really do like it. So there's our project. Let me get all the bits and pieces out. Now, we talked yesterday, we had some suggestions about other things that you could do with this. And I think Kitty suggested a pocket on the inside. Now, you can see there's all my stitching on the inside. We're going to hide that because it doesn't look very nice. We hide that by putting an inside cover on. So you could actually stitch something to your inside cover. And Kitty suggested we could do a pocket. So what you would do is this, if this is your, that's not my inside cover, but I will cut an inside piece in a moment. That's a bit annoying because I was going to do that as my inside cover, and now I'm concerned you won't be able to see it. But I've cut the other bits. The other bit's too small. Okay, I'll have to use the burgundy and just show from the front. This is the inside leaf. All right, so the inside leaf wants to be 1/2 inch smaller all the way around. All right, because it does need to sit inside like that. And oh, Brenda says, don't normally get a chance to watch on Wednesdays. This is a nice surprise for me. There you go. You want it to be slightly smaller. So one reason for that is they tend to sort of move around in there, and you don't really want it poking at the bottom. But also when you come to sew it together, you don't have to worry about this getting caught in any edges. Okay, so but what you do want to do next is decide if you're going to put something on the inside cover. So what you could do is you could just sew a little pocket. So you could perhaps cut a piece of felt out. I would sew something across the top to stabilize the top, and then sew around the outside. So perhaps do a blanket stitch across the top, maybe to neaten it. But you know, felt is quite sturdy. This isn't going to fray, so you could leave it raw edged as well if you like, or use another fabric, perhaps fold over the top, stitch it down, and then sew around the outside, so that you had, let's pretend it's this one, you had a little pocket, perhaps put your scissors in. Another thing you could do is, actually these scissors are too big and too heavy for this pouch, but if you stabilize this, if you had put some card inside it like Victoria had suggested, then it would probably be stiff enough. But another thing you can do is just put a strip across here so that your scissors tuck into it rather than going into a full pocket. But I mean, if you've got smaller scissors and lighter scissors like these ones, they would sit quite nicely in a little pocket. So you've got it all to go with, all to fit in, shall we say. So, and as I said, with the kits, you've got plenty to be playing with in here. So let's have a look at constructing, because what we need to do now is put this all together. And I am going to have to use this one because the other bits I've got are not quite big enough, because I've used this one for the lining, but there's still plenty left. You see, this is going to be the inside sheet. This is my inside sheet. So that's going to be fine. And when you're doing the square one, you don't have this problem because you do have plenty left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut this the same size with my ruler and rotary cutter. Now, you're going to have to trim this down, and I will show you why. So I'm just going to, for now, cut this the same size. Now I'm obviously using my ruler and rotary cutter because that's what I have. You could just use scissors. All right, I just use them because I have them as a quilter. I've seen plastic sewn in for pockets, says Jodie. Yeah, could do indeed. So what we're going to do is going to take that and pop this on top. Now, that should be roughly the same size, but as we fold it in, you see it starts to show around the edge. So this is why we're going to have to trim it down. It's because of the width of the felt inside our project. But for now, so it lies nice and flat there and matches up pretty well. But when we put the spine together, that's when it's going to go a bit, it's going to poke out like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that piece. I'm going to also take my piece of lining that I have, sorry, my leaf. Now this leaf I've cut 1 inch smaller all the way around. Okay, so it's 1/2 inch in. And I'm going to pin it. Pin all 3 layers together. Just to hold these in place. Because again, these are going to move when I fold them. You see what happens? It sort of does that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half. So you see that's even more noticeable now because I've got all of those layers inside. But I'm going to fold it in half so the outsides match up. The purple matches up. And that's my spine. So what I need to do, is it white felt for the inside? I mean, it depends on which kit you buy. So I made this first one with turquoise, which comes with this light colour, this light blue, this deep turquoise and the cream. So it's up to you. You can put whatever you want inside. So I've used the lilac in this one because it comes with the wine, the purple and the lilac. So I'm going to close that like this. And if you've got any clips, it can just be helpful to hold these in place just for now. All right, give that a good squish. All right, now what we want to do is stitch that that binding in place. So I'm going to get my stranded cotton. So this is the stranded cotton that comes in the kit for the purple. You get different colours ones. And I'm going to find the end. I won't find the end, find the end, find the end. Because I haven't used this one yet. So lovely quality anchor threads that does not appear to have an end. There we go, there it is. So I'm going to gently pull that. Now this is a stranded cotton, which means it's woven. Okay, it's twisted together. So it's got 6 strands in it and we want to take 2 of them. So if you pull it apart and grab 2, okay, what we want to do is if you just pull these 2 threads, it's going to knot and bunch up. So we don't want to do that because it's twisted round, it'll just twist further. So what you do is you hold them apart with your finger and then you run that finger down between them. See, it's still trying to twist. Now, I've done this about 18 inches long, and we'll just get to the end and then separate them out. I've done this about 18 inches long, so you can work shorter if you wish. Now, I'm going to grab the size 10 needle out of one of these bundles. Nice to see pages cut with pinking scissors. Yes, Jodie. Yeah, you could cut them with pinking shears. Just to add a bit of decorative detail. You could stitch around the top if you wanted to make these decorative. You could curve the corners. There's all sorts of things that you can do. So let me just thread my needle. All right, so I've got my needle threaded. Could you not fold outside in to get an accurate fold line? Yes, you could. The thing is, because it's felt, it's quite boingy. So as soon as we unfold it, we don't get, we've only got that little line and it's not really very visible. So you kind of have to work on it like this. Now, what I need to do is I need to sew all the way through this. All right. But let me just show you the other one. I did it with a couching stitch first of all, and then I've gone over it with a chain stitch. All right. Now the reason why I haven't just done a couch stitch is it's going to show on the outside. Sorry, the reason I haven't done just a straight chain stitch is it's going to show on the outside. So what I did was I couched it first through all 3 layers. Sorry, I basted first through all 3 layers, and then I couched these beads on the top and did that decorative line of stitching on the inside, which just hides any basting stitches. Okay, so let me just show you what that means. So I've got these folded, as I said. All right, you could mark it as well. Actually, that's the wrong thread, just looking at that one. This first step I actually want to do with that thread, and you'll see, no I don't, I want to do with a single thread. My apologies, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me get another needle. I wanted 1 strand of this because I want to be able to hide it with my beads. If I've got too thick a thread, it's going to show on the top, and what we're trying to do is just hide everything. So I'm just taking another strand, just 1 strand, because when I do my chain stitch, this is why I'm not doing it with that, because on the inside it will probably show through my chain stitch. I'm going to show you, and I did the couch stitch yesterday on the go live, but I will be showing you it again in a moment. So a couch stitch is basically where you've got a line of beads and you stitch over it to hold them in place. It's how we did this, or even through them. So it's how we did this yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to hide my knot. Where's my fold? There's my fold. I'm going to hide the knot between the 2 layers because I don't want to see it. And I'm just going to do a tiny stitch there, and then I'm going to go through to for the front side, so you can see it there. So all the time I'm going back to my fold. You could mark this if you want to, but I want to get it on that folded edge, and it does have a tendency, if you're not careful, for everything to move. So this is holding our layers together, and then we're hopefully going to have something then that we'll be able to hide. And okay, missed half of yesterday, we'll look back for it, but I know what you mean. No worries, my darling. So hang on, I'm trying to get through to the front. It is quite tricky as well, even if you mark the line, because felt is quite thick. You could be dead straight on one side and slightly wobbly on the other. So what we could do is actually take this thread out when we've finished as well, but I do need a line to follow. Cindy says I like the idea of this. Yep, and the thing is, we're going to hide everything with our beads. So, and a little bit of stitching. You could also put beads on the inside if you wanted to. So I'll do it quite quickly. Oh, there we go. We've got that stitched from one side to the other. So that's holding. And you can see it's visible on the outside, which is quite ugly. So we're going to cover that. All right, so I'm going to come back. Now I can take these pins out. All right. So to hide that seam there, I'm going to come back with my beading needle. So let's grab a beading needle and some beading thread. Ooh. And drop something on the floor. I've got my beading thread tangled. Hold on. Bear with, caller. Got a little knot in my thread. There we go. Right. So I'm going to take that out. Now there are two ways that we can do this next piece. One way is to do the whole row and come back and couch it, which is the method I'm going to use. Victoria said, could you machine through the two inner layers and then add the outer layer with the beads? Yes, you could, but don't trim it down until all of the layers are connected together. Okay, so you could actually, yes, so with your sewing machine down here and then put the outside one on. But your stitches, when you're doing the outside one, if you're coming through, you want to make sure you don't pick through this one again because you don't want them to show. So anyway, I'm going to get my beading thread in between the two. Did I just tie a knot? No, I didn't. Just going to tie a knot. All right, tuck that inside. So what works quite one way to get a nice straight line is to get your beads and couch them down. So that's what I did with this one. So basically I got all of the beads on my thread from one side to the other, and then I came back and stitched in between every two. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. So whereas these we just did a few at a time, it can be, if you just do a few at a time, it can be tricky to keep everything straight. All right, so this is where you need a bead spinner to put all your beads, and you could do this with the seed beads, you could do it with the bugle beads. I've just happened to use it with the crystal beads. So I'll just put a few on here. I'm not going to sew all the way across because there's a few other bits and pieces I need to show you, but just want you to have the idea. And you can do this in as I said, with whichever beads you like, or you could do it with a decorative stitch. But you see, that's going to sit along there like that. So I'll just pop these extra few on here to give you a feeling of how this works. And you could also do halfway across if you want to, and then do the other half. Or you could mix up crystals and you could mix up your pearls as well. I used the pearls on the front of my pouch. If machine sewing, put corresponding colour of threads in the spool on the top, and then it wouldn't be so noticeable. Yes, Margaret. And also the thing with machine sewing, it's going to be a lot quicker and it's going to be dead straight. But you see, there I go. I've got that laid down. And I would go all the way along to the end there. Well, imagining that this is the end, and I'm covering up those stitches. All right, so I'm only going through one layer of the felt now because this stitching goes through all of those layers, so I don't need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through these beads. I'm going to go back through two at a time. All right, and then I'm going to go in and underneath and then up for the next two. All right, so again, let's have a look. So I've gone through the first two, back through, and you see that anchors those two there. So those two are anchored. And then couching basically just means that you're holding down that layer there. Could you stitch and bead the two layers of the case together before stitching the leaves? Well, then if you do that, you could couch them, but then you've got to be careful that you don't stitch, because the idea of this layer here is that it hides all of this outside stitching so that you don't see your leaves and everything. That's there to hide it. So you could sew it all together at the beginning, but then you have to remember to keep that tucked out of the way. So it really depends how you actually want to work. Okay, so I'm going to come down, and couching just means that thread goes over the thread between those two needles, and then we're going to go along a bit, and then we're going to go over the next two, or over the thread between the next two, and basically that is couching. We are holding it down. All right, and one way that also works quite nicely is, instead of going up and straight back down, is you actually go up through a couple of beads and then down. And then if you want to, when you've got all the way to the end, if you go back again through all of those beads and pull it tight, it holds them in a nice straight edge. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to do a little, obviously you would do that at the end, so it would not be visible. It would all be hidden inside between these two layers. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten that off, do a couple of little stitches to secure it. And then what I want to do is hide the stitches, these stitches on the inside there. So I'll do that next. I happen to have one of the needles already threaded. So two layers, two strands. And all I'm going to do now is, from one end to the other, I'm going to do a chain stitch. You could do a running stitch, but I think a chain stitch just looks neater. So to do that, I come out of my felt. I'm going to go back in at the same point, but travel along a little bit. All right. And then you pull your thread like that, and it creates a little stitch. And then we go on to the next one. So back in the hole that I just came out of, move along a little bit, pull, and there's a chain, and keep adding this chain all the way along. It's a nice simple stitch. Actually, I think it's probably the first stitch I ever learned. And it covers, but it's slightly wider than a running stitch. So if this has gone a little bit wobbly, it will cover it. And it also looks nice on the inside. I think it looks finished. So I'm not going all through the layers, because again, that first set of stitches has held all the layers. So underneath I can feel I'm not coming all the way through onto the top there. But even if I did, it would be fine, because that strand of beads that we've put on there would cover it. So here we go. We carry on across, and then there's our chain stitch. So we are really motoring on now. All of our layers are secured together, and any stitching is hidden. Any of the ugly stitching in there you can't see, and the stitching from making our binding is also hidden. All right, so when we want to finish, all we do is we go back down over the top of, there's our last chain. You actually need to go the other side of that stitch there to finish that off. Okay, again, you would hide that, and in something like this, it's quite easy to hide it if you don't make a big knot in your thread. Oh. Right, pull that through. And you could just come back. I do a stop stitch, which basically means you go back down in almost the hole that you just came out of, wrap your thread around it, pull it through, and it makes a little knot. And then we can travel back inside like that and cut it off. Pull it a little bit so it's under tension, cut it off, and there we go. Okay, so that's our spine done. So once you've done that, you'll notice that those other bits are no longer nice and leveled up because things move. And because this is so thick, the inside actually needs to be smaller than the outside. So what I'm going to do now is line everything up and trim with my scissors. Right here. Anne says, I think chain stitch has so many applications. I really enjoy using it. Definitely. And you could add little, chain stitch flowers to your front of your design, or decorate the back as well if you like with that, Anne. So Margaret says, could you use fabric glue to stick down the spine? Well, fabric glue and felt, not permanently. Okay, I would say, because a lot of fabric glues, they're not designed to be permanent, but if they are designed to be permanent, they add stiffness to it, and getting your needle through it can be tricky. If you're using a temporary fabric glue, it's not as strong as you'd like it to be, but you can clip them. You could use bulldog clips. It's just a matter of holding it together like that, because this is quite weighty now, and I don't think that spine would be supported with fabric glue if you weren't adding a little extra support. So I've picked up the wrong scissors. Those are my paper scissors. Hold on. So I'm just trimming that one there now so that it fits the top there. But you do need to trim it while it's closed, because when you open it, everything moves. So I'm just going to trim, and it's to do with the thickness of the felt. All right, you can see on the back here it's moved even more. And it might be nice, because what I did with this one is I curved the corners. I thought that looked particularly nice. So all you need to do for that is line everything up and just trim around. This makes it easier when we come to sew the pieces together as well. So you see I've just cut those at the top and bottom, and do the same on the back. All right, so let me just tidy this up, and now I'm going to show you how to do the outside edge. To finish off, we're going to do a blanket stitch with a purl. So let me just tie the end off this. I'm just going to put all of these bits back in the bag. Just hold all these pieces together. So I finished with all of my bits of felt. Let's tidy up. I need that. I need my needle. I like to move things out of the way so they don't get lost. And also, I've not been using my beading mat, so just put in, don't want everything to roll away. Take my pins out the way, bring my needle, my beading mat in. That'll probably help. Right, there we go. So beading mat, pearls, thread. Now again, I'm using two strands here of the stranded cotton. and I've threaded it onto the size 10 needle. Let's cut some of these pearls off. All right. So again, you might find it helpful to clip the edge while you're working. All right, because things will move around and you have to keep folding it like this, because this is where it's going to sit. So to make sure those edges all line up, you kind of want it closed before you clip it. All right, or pin it. So I've got some. Now I have done 2 finishes on this. So on the front, we've got those lovely pearls. Okay, and on the other side, I've just gone with the straight blanket stitch. All right, just to hold all those layers together. I thought, you know, the pearls are so beautiful, I only want to use half of them. There's enough to go all the way around both sides for this size, but I think it was just too much to put them on both. It's enough. I'll save the rest of the pearls for another project, because I think these are just gorgeous. So right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my spine. With a blanket stitch, because I'm going to do the spine forwards, and I've just done a little knot in between those 2 layers, and I'm pushing the thread end in between. All right, so to do a blanket stitch, first of all, I'm going to put a pearl on here. So let's pop a pearl onto my thing. Now to do a blanket stitch, we just ignore that pearl for a moment. Carol says, oh, I know how to do a blanket stitch. There you go. So what we're going to do is I've come up here, and we're going to go diagonally down and across to there, like that, and then wrap the thread around. So this is just a blanket stitch. All right, so you go through one side to the other, you wrap the thread, comes around the back of the needle like that, and when you pull that up, that's a blanket stitch. But what we're actually going to do is, I'm going to make it slightly wider, is the bead itself is just going to slide onto the top there like that. So we're inserting that pearl into our blanket stitch. So when I pull that tight, you see we have a stitch, and our pearl sits right in the center on the top there. You can make this stitch smaller or bigger, it's up to you how much of a feature you want to do. So we're going to put another pearl on. All right, ignore the pearl for now. Go through both sides. Try and keep it lined up so it's as long as the previous stitch. And then we're going to drop the bead down and put the thread behind the needle. And there we go. We've got our neat pearl edge. Now, blanket stitch, it's called blanket stitch because it's used for sewing together felt blankets and woolen blankets. And we're just adding a bead into it. So again, across and diagonally down through both pieces. It really doesn't like that red, does it? Through both pieces. Come on. There we go. So through both pieces, and then this bit with the pearl has to sit on the edge before you wrap it round the needle like that. And there we go. We've got a lovely beaded edge with that there. So I'm just going to do a couple more. So you do have to put your bead on one at a time, because obviously if you tried to do more, you'd actually have more beads sitting in one go. We don't want that. We only want one at a time. But keep just adjusting your 2 layers of felt. There's your bead or your pearl or your crystal, because there's nothing to say you can't use your pearls down there and have the crystals around the outside, or even the seed beads or the bugle beads actually. But look, there we go. We've got this lovely finish where it's going to hold all of those layers together. And because we've curved this as well, it'll go neatly around the curve. So if I just bring this in here. Right, so what I've done is as I've come to that curve, I've just brought the stitch in on a curve. And there you go, it curves round nicely. We've got it on the front and the back. Come on. And then on the back piece, I've just done the plain blanket stitch. It's just really, really nice, doesn't it? I love working with beads and felt. I think it's so much fun because we don't have to worry about anything as awkward as bias stretch, because it doesn't. We don't have to worry about fraying, because it doesn't. We're just using those lovely decorative stitches. Now, Vicky did ask at the end of yesterday, or Victoria, I should say. Sorry, I don't know if you're a Vicky or a Victoria, but Victoria asked about stabilizing it. So if you wanted to make this stiffer, because obviously it's felt, you would place your piece of card or whatever you want. You might be using cereal box, you might be using something like Decaville, which is actually designed for this kind of thing, but you would slot that inside, but it needs to be slightly smaller because even Decaville can be tricky to stitch through with a hand needle. It's fine with a sewing machine, but with a hand needle it can be tricky. So you want to make sure that it is, however, your stitches like this will go up to the edge of the cardboard. So however big you're doing your stitches, cut your cardboard that much smaller and slide it in, and that will give you a much stiffer, almost like a book cover kind of feel to it. And also you can add as many pages in here. Sue says that's so neat. There you go. Yeah, it just, because one of the reasons it's neat is because the bead makes you keep a consistent distance. All right. Another thing that you can do, which if I just grab a pen, and I saw this years ago on the internet, and I've used it so many times before. Hold on, so I've just got to take a slug of drink. Is if you want to make sure that you have a consistent width of stitch, all right, so this stitch to here is consistent, take a pen and mark a line on your finger, and then mark another line where that stitch would be. So you've now got two little lines on your fingers, and that means you can then, this is the last stitch, you can line the last stitch up with the mark of your finger like that, and it's easier if you put your bead on it. All right, so there's the previous end of our stitch lined up with the mark on our finger, and then I'm going to do my stitch in line with the second mark on my finger. With the bead. Pop that underneath. And it will keep it nice and even, because you will just keep moving. I know, Anne, once you see that, you just go, oh, that's brilliant. Why did I never think of it? So I saw it on one of those sewing hack videos a few years ago that everybody was putting up on YouTube. And it's that one of those that I have. Yes, Margaret says, remember not to stitch through your finger. Yes. Well, my finger would have been here anyway, because I would have been holding it. But yeah, it's one of those hacks that has stayed with me. And I have used time and time again to just keep my stitching evenly spaced. So it is a bit more time consuming than plain blanket stitch, because we have got to get that bead on there. but I think it is worth the effort to give us that lovely finish. The other thing you can do, you see, is you could just do plain blanket stitch, which also looks equally lovely. So this is it plain. There we go. So going through from one side to the other, picking up both sides. The thread goes around the top. When we want to finish a stitch, what I do is I come through like this, and when I wrap my needle around, I wrap it round twice. And what that's actually, I'm not going to do this now because I do need to unpick it to carry on with the beads, but I wrap it around twice, and when I pull that through, it actually makes a little invisible knot on the top of my blanket stitch, and then I can take the thread down inside and bury it. Okay, so that will then be nice and hidden. But so the plain blanket stitch is what I did on the, let's move that out of the way. So there we go. The plain blanket stitch is what I did on the back of our project there with that lovely curve. And then I did the beaded one on the front with those pearls. So I think they look absolutely lovely. And then what we've got is, in this case, we've got two different sizes. You could actually make both of these from one kit. Obviously this one uses a lot more of the kit. This uses probably half of the kit, because this is half of one piece of felt, half of another, and half of another, whereas this uses about a third. Okay, because you've got those bits there. So, and with the lining, you can put in as many pages here as you want. Just remember, you do need to sew them together. I've secured mine again with that chain stitch in the middle. You could, as I say, put little labels on here so that you've got different needles together. So for example, something this big, you could put a label there that says, you know, 8 to 12 betweens, and long eye beadle beading needles. Words today. You could put that there so that you're keeping them all in control. Now, with the text, it's quite hard to draw on felt. So if I just show you with a pen, it's quite difficult to draw with a pen onto that. But you could well, Margaret says you could use different color leaves for different size needles. Definitely, that would work beautifully. What you could do is you could get a fabric pen and write on a little bit of normal fabric, so cotton, and stitch that on as a little label. You could perhaps write on a bit of ribbon, a bit of decorative ribbon, and sew that along there as well. You could use a blanket stitch to hold that down. As Margaret says, you could use different coloured leaves. So think of this as a leaf in a book. That's what we're talking about when we say leaves. This is the leaf in a book. But again, you could actually use this as well to practice some of your decorative embroidery stitches. So for example, you could stitch the name in a running stitch, and then maybe section it off with little decorative stitches, because that's what the Victorians would do. They would do all these little stitch samplers, and they would have little fragments of text and bits and pieces in their stitched books. But you could perhaps have, you know, your beading needles, and then separate that section from this section with, I don't know, maybe some little cross stitches perhaps, or you could do some chain stitch flowers. They're called lazy daisies. Little flowers across here. You know, you really could go to town on this, and it makes a beautiful present for someone else, because obviously Mother's Day coming up soon, or for yourself, because I'm all for making presents for ourselves. And I think as well, it's great fun when you can have your craft but store the things that you use. So store and protect your tools with something beautiful as well. So Anne says, lovely project. Thank you, Sarah. Can't wait to see what you're going to do next. Yeah, so, you know, none of these are not complex sewing projects. they're more bead embroidery, but there are a few stitches that you can learn, like that blanket stitch. Introduce it with your beads. It's great fun. And you know, it's just a way of combining and learning a few new skills as well. So as I said, the bundles, they're available in 4 colors, but you do get quite a lot in it. So this is the biggest project that I've done from the bundle, and as you can see, it uses about half of it, because you know that is slightly over half. So useful and pretty. Victoria says Mother's Day would be good. Charlotte says useful and pretty. Cindy says good morning, Ruth. Good morning. So Lucy says so cute, really enjoyed this, very excited to try. So you know, what I want to be able to do is obviously bring you lots of beading projects, but bring you something with a slightly different slant, because you've got, you know, you've got content here every day, and there's so many different things that you can touch on when it comes to beading. So, you know, I mean, we've done, since I've been doing this, I started doing Wednesdays back in October, I think, and I've done beaded crochet, I've done wire wrapping, I've done bracelets, and oh yeah, bit of wire wrapping here with one of my stones that I've had in my collection for a while. You know, all of those things, and they're all slightly different. And then the way Kitty does something and the way I do something will be different, and the way Sarah M does something and the way I do something will be different. So it's, hopefully we're going to bring you lots of different and interesting and exciting things to play with. But yes, so you know, as sewing is my thing, I'm quite excited to be able to bring you a little bit of applique and keep it simple. So yesterday we had some brilliant ideas from you guys about different designs. So obviously I've just done flowers because they're nice and simple to draft, but you could do birds. I think, I can't remember who it was yesterday said said we could do a bird or something like that. You could do heart shapes, you could do text. Margaret says something different. Oh, I lost the comment there. Something different. Need one for beading needles. Yeah, so have one for beading needles. You've probably got friends who sew. You know, we can never find a pin. You can keep your pins in it. Lucy says we've all been blessed. Thank you for spending your time with us. And don't forget to like the page at the top, says Carol. Yes, and please do, if you can find Sarah Payne Quilter, that's me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook as Sarah Payne Quilter, and Instagram as well, and YouTube if you fancy it. Do please pop over and have a look at what I'm up to on my page, because there's a mixture of beading and quilting over there as well, and I do post quite a lot. I do. It's like I've got someone to talk to then, isn't it? So anyway, I really hope you're going to have a go with these. Grab yourselves a felt kit and keep everything that you've got left over once you've made it, because as I said, I'm going to be doing a few more projects with these bundles. So they're less than £15. I think they're incredible value. But you know, you're going to be able to make, well, you could make a couple of these if you want to, but we are going to make some more projects. Keep an eye out on the listing to see what's coming up. I think next week. Yes, Esther, she says, I'm working. Can I watch these later? Yes, you can, Esther. If you go to the Totallybeads website and you press the bit that says Facebook tutorials, you will see all of the tutorials there. Yesterday's, today's, you will see tons of them. So, but I think next week I'm doing a little bit of POT. I think I'm doing POT cubes. I've been making little cubes. Completely obsessed with little cubes right now. They're all over the place. So, please do join me next Wednesday, but the girls will be back. Kitty and Sarah will keep you entertained every day from 10 o'clock. And thank you for Lucy for keeping control of the questions. Let me just have a quick look and see if there's anything else that I've missed in terms of questions, just while I grab a quick coffee here. So just see if I've answered everybody's questions. Could you stitch? Yes, I answered Lucy. Sorry, I've answered Mina's. I've answered Jodie. She said, how many pages in the needle book? I've just put one set in, but you could put as many as you like. Yeah, I think I've answered everybody's questions there. So thank you very much for joining me, and thank you very much for your patience. And I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Keep tuning in. Cindy says, Sarah, you're so fun. Thank you. I do my best. But you all have a lovely day. Stay nice and warm. Stay safe. Look after yourself. And I'll see you back here again soon. So you have a fun day. Bye-bye.